So in the last 5 years, do you think you've seen more or less brand loyalty at your dealership? And depending on what you've seen, do you consider it a good or a bad thing for business?
So I think we've seen some, well, really just a mixture because we've seen some differences in generations as far as brand loyalty goes, or at least it seems like there's a difference in generations. Some of that older generation that's kind of, you know, only got 4 or 5, maybe 10 years left on the farm before they kind of hang it up and pass it on to their kids. That generation is still very much brand loyal, whether they're loyal to our brand or somebody else's brand. The brand that's on the equipment is very important to them. What we've seen is that kind of that next generation down. Um, there is still some brand loyalty there for sure, but at the same time, they're a lot more open to looking at alternatives and kind of looking at to see what makes economic sense for them and where they might be able to gain some efficiency. And so they might be willing to make a jump if they feel like there's a good monetary incentive to make that jump from one brand to another is kind of what we've seen. Now, that's not to say that there's no brand loyalty there, because there definitely still is some brand loyalty. What we're really seeing more than anything is, I think, more dealership loyalty. And so, and that in that sense, it's been good for us because we have a lot of customers that are loyal to our dealership, and whether, no matter what brand we're selling, they want to buy from us because of the service that we're able to provide. And I think there's a lot of other dealers that are in a similar position. Not only are they, they want to keep that level of service, but they're very comfortable with the people there and the relationships that they have there, because it's still very much a relationship business. And so you've got to have those relationships, and you've got to have that trust of the customer, and they've got to know that you're going to be there whenever they need them. And that's what we've seen loyalty to, probably more so than brands, really in both generations. But where we've seen people, that used to only buy green or used to only buy red, we've seen them looking at other colors the last 4 or 5 years, has been kind of in that younger generation, and they're really looking at, efficiencies or technology advances. One of those two things are kind of driving those decisions to maybe try out another brand, where 10 years ago they wouldn't have. They would have just stuck with whatever their main brand was.
Great. No, and I hadn't heard that generational aspect before. And you said that's in the last 5 years that's really been happening?
That's when I've started to notice it more, is in the last 5 years. And it's the generation that's kind of my generation down. I'd say guys that are in their early 40s to early 30s, somewhere in there. You're seeing a lot of those people, that generation, taking over the farm, at least in our area. And so that generation there seems to be a lot more willing to look at the economic benefits and the technology benefits and how that's going to impact their operation, because those guys are really crunching the numbers. They're not as likely to make decisions based on this is just what we've always done. They're a lot more likely to make decisions based on the data that they get, because it's just kind of natural that they grew up in an era where there was more data to be had, and they're very economically driven, very smart business people. And so they're willing to look at different brands. They're still going to be as loyal as they can be, probably, to the brand that they grew up with. But at the same time, if there's a real economic advantage, we've seen them trying out new things.